He woke up in the body of a cuckolded CEO, and he had a laugh watching his wife Alara and her lover Jin walk all over him with their illegitimate son in tow. He sent them packing with a hard slap across the face, determined to divorce her. She was shamelessly clinging on, still trying to bleed him dry. Too bad for her. The man she married, the pathetic doormat, was gone. He'd cut off her resources, torpedo her career, and turn her and her lover against each other until they were at each other's throats. In the end, they'd go to jail together. When he opened his eyes, he was sitting in front of a floor-to-ceiling window in a luxury penthouse, a cup of cold coffee in his hand. His head was splitting, like someone had taken a sledgehammer to his temples. Kai, you're a man. You need to be more magnanimous. You and Alara have been married for 10 years. You have history. And since you're sterile and can't have kids anyway, why not just accept the situation and move on? A shrill voice pierced his ears. He turned to see a lavishly dressed, middle-aged woman staring at him with contempt. Standing next to her was a slender woman in designer clothes, her makeup immaculate. She looked at him with the cold indifference of a stranger. Wait a minute. Kai, Alara, sterile. Isn't this the plot of that trashy novel he stayed up all night reading, The Illicit Wife's Secret? He looked down at his hands. They were long and clean, with an expensive Patek Philippe watch on the wrist. These weren't his hands, calloused from years of overtime. He surveyed the room, a spacious living area filled with priceless art and furniture, the windows offering a stunning view of the city skyline. Did he get transmigrated into the body of the poor sucker CEO who gets cheated on by his wife? Kai, are you spacing out? The woman named Alara said impatiently. Did you hear what my mother said? He looked up at her and suddenly found the whole situation hilarious. The original Kai in the novel was a hopeless romantic. Even after discovering his wife had cheated on him and had a child with another man, he still tried to save the marriage. In the end, his wife and her lover conspired to bankrupt his company, ruin his reputation, and drive him to suicide by jumping off a building. But him? He was a sweet driver in the 21st century. His entire job was seeing through phonies and schemers. Heard, he said slowly, setting down the coffee cup. So, let me get this straight. You cheated, had a baby with another guy, and now I'm supposed to be grateful for the opportunity to raise him? Alara and her mother's expression soured. What kind of attitude is that? Her mother shrieked. Our Alara isn't a list celebrity. Marrying you is the best thing that ever happened to you. If it weren't for your money. Alara cut her mother off sharply, then turned back to him, her face a cold mask once again. Kai, this isn't the time for you to be selfish. Jin has been through a lot for me, and I owe him. I already left him once. Jin, that was the lover's name. The novel described him as a refined and gentle music producer, but in reality, he was just a professional mooch. So your way of repaying him is to have his child, he scoffed. And how do you plan on repaying me? 10 years of marriage. Telling me you were the one who couldn't have children, only to turn around and have one with someone else. A flicker of panic crossed Alara's eyes, but she quickly composed herself. I already told you, you could be the boy's godfather. We maintain the marriage for appearances, and you can do whatever you want on the side. He almost applauded her audacity. She really was a creature of Hollywood, shameless to the core. Just then, the doorbell rang. Alara's face lit up as she hurried to the door. He watched coldly, already knowing who it was. The door opened to reveal a man in a casual blazer, holding the hand of a 5- or 6-year-old boy. The man saw him and looked momentarily uncomfortable, but he quickly pasted on a fake smile. Mr. Sun, a pleasure to finally meet you. He held out his hand. I'm Jian Li. He didn't move. He just looked him up and down. He was just as the novel described, superficially handsome, but with shifty eyes that screamed untrustworthy. The little boy hid behind Jian, peering at him timidly. So this was the kid. Jian, what are you doing here? Alara's voice suddenly turned warm and gentle, a stark contrast to the icy tone she used with him. He missed his mommy, Jian said, ruffling the boy's hair. Alex, say hi to mommy. Mommy, the boy ran into Alara's arms. What a heartwarming family reunion. Too bad it was happening in his home. He stood up and walked over to them. Alara instinctively pulled the child behind her as if he were going to hurt him. Kai, what are you doing? She asked on guard. He ignored her and looked at Jian. Are you familiar with the crime of trespassing? Jian's smile froze. Mr. Sun, Alara invited me. Is that so? He turned to Alara. Did he agree to this? She frowned. Kai, don't be ridiculous. This is my home, too. I can invite whoever I want. Oh, he raised an eyebrow. Is her name on the deed? Her face fell. Of course it wasn't. He had paid for this Park Avenue penthouse in cash, and his name was the only one on it. He didn't waste any more time. He pulled out his phone. Security. I have intruders in my apartment. Please send someone up to handle it. Kai. Alara shrieked. Are you insane? Jian started to panic. Mr. Sun, let's just talk about this. There's nothing to talk about, he said, his gaze locking onto him. You have 3 seconds to get out on your own, or I'll have security throw you out. 3. Kai, you wouldn't dare. Alara yelled, stepping in front of Jian. 2. Sweat beaded on Jian's forehead. He pulled the child back a step. 1. Time is up. He grabbed the front of Jian's collar, and as he stared at him in terror, he slapped him hard across the face. Crack. The sound echoed in the massive living room. Jian stumbled backward, crashing into the entryway console. The little boy burst into tears. Kai. Alara screamed, rushing to Jian's side. How dare you hit him? He shook his stinging hand and sneered. A gutless freeloader like him deserves to be hit. Who gave you the courage to bring your drama into my home? Jian clutched his face, a venomous look flashing in his eyes before he replaced it with a wounded expression. Alara, I should just go. You're not going anywhere. Alara glared at him. Kai, you're going to apologize to Jian right now. Her shamelessness was almost comical. Apologize? Fine. He walked over to Jian as he watched him with wide, fearful eyes. He raised his hand again. I'm sorry, he said. I didn't hit you hard enough. Crack. Another slap, even louder this time. Jian went down, landing in a heap on the floor, blood trickling from his nose. Get out, he said, pointing to the door. If I ever see you near my property again, I guarantee it'll be worse than a slap. Jian scrambled to his feet, grabbed the wailing child, and fled. Alara tried to run after him, but he grabbed her arm. Let go of me, she struggled. You psycho, I'm calling the cops. Go ahead, he said, letting her go and taking out his own phone. Want me to dial 911 for you? I can tell them all about how the famous actress Alara Evans is having an affair and hiding an illegitimate child. Alara froze. She knew better than anyone that a scandal like that would be the end of her career. What? What do you want? She stammered, her voice trembling. A divorce, he said flatly. And you leave with nothing. Never, she shrieked. I own half of this company. Without me promoting it all these years, your media empire would be nothing. He laughed coldly. In the novel, Kai's company did grow thanks to Alara's celebrity status, but the price was that Alara had practically drained the company's finances to fund her and Jian's lavish lifestyle. Then we'll see you in court, he said, turning and walking toward the study. My lawyer will be in touch. Kai. Alara screamed hysterically behind him. You think you can just get rid of me? Dream on. I'll never sign those papers. I'll ruin you. He closed the heavy oak door of the study behind him, shutting out her noise. Sinking into the plush leather office chair, he let out a long breath. It was a rough start, but at least he was in control now. Next up, making that trashy couple pay. He opened his laptop and logged into the corporate system. As CEO, he had access to all financial records. It didn't take long to find the irregularities. Over the past 3 years, huge sums of money had been funneled to several shell corporations under the guise of talent promotion fees. Just as I thought, he murmured, his eyes narrowing. The novel had mentioned that Alara and Jian embezzled company funds, but it never went into detail. He kept digging and found more suspicious transactions. Some were even signed with his name, but the signature was a clear forgery. As he was compiling the evidence, his phone rang. It was an unknown number. Hello, Mr. Sun. It's me. It was Jian. His voice was dark and menacing. You're not getting away with what you did today. He chuckled. What's the matter? One slap wasn't enough? You want another? Don't get cocky, he hissed. I know your company's secrets. If I leak what I know, what do you think will happen? His heart skipped a beat. Was he threatening him? The idiot was actually telling him he had evidence against him. Was he trying to speedrun his own demise? What secrets? He asked, feigning panic. Playing dumb, Jian sneered. The cooked books, the embezzlement. It's enough to put you in prison for the rest of your life. So that was his angle. Pathetic. He hit the record button on his phone. "Mr. Lee, are you attempting to extort me? Call it whatever you want," he said, malice dripping from his voice. "Either you pay me $50 million to keep my mouth shut, or you and your company go down in flames." He almost laughed out loud. This moron's IQ was impressively low. "Let me think about it," he said, pretending to hesitate. "I'll give you an answer tomorrow." After hanging up, he immediately called the head of his company's legal department and scheduled a meeting with the best criminal defense attorney in the city. If Jin wanted to play dirty, he was ready to bury him. The next morning, Alara surprised him by making breakfast herself. She was wearing a silky nightgown, parading around the kitchen island. "Kai, honey, can we please talk? I was too emotional yesterday." He watched her performance, eating his breakfast without a word. "Jin and I are over." "It's been over for a long time," she said, sliding onto his lap and wrapping her arms around his neck. "The baby was a mistake, a moment of weakness. You're the one I love." He nearly choked on his food. This woman could switch personalities faster than a traffic light. A true actress. "Is that so?" He pushed her off. "Then who was it that snuck out late last night to meet with Jin?" The color drained from Alara's face. "You, how did you know?" He held up his phone. "The moment you left the building, the security system sent me an alert. The cameras at the garage entrance had perfectly captured you and Jin scheming in his car." I was just going to end things with him for good," she stammered. "Save it," he said, standing up. "Pack your things. I want you out by the end of the day." "Kai." Her face contorted back into a mask of rage. "Don't push me. Jin has dirt on you." "Oh." He raised an eyebrow. "What kind of dirt?" He knows. "He knows you embezzled company funds," she sputtered. "If that gets out, you're finished." He burst out laughing. "My dear, you seem to have one crucial fact wrong." He leaned in close, his voice low and steady. "You and Jin were the ones who cooked the books, and I have all the proof." Alara looked like she'd been struck by lightning. "So now you have two choices," he said, holding up two fingers. "One, you sign the divorce papers and walk away with nothing. Or two, I call the police, and you and your boyfriend can share a jail cell." Her legs gave out, and she sank into a chair. "You've changed," she whispered, trembling. "The old Kai would never have treated me like this." "The old Kai is dead," he said coldly, "and you're the one who killed him." He stood before the floor-to-ceiling windows of his office at the top of the Apex Tower, looking out over the city. 3 days had passed. Alara still hadn't signed the divorce papers, but she had disappeared from his sight. It was a classic move for her: stall, delay, and wait for him to lose his nerve. On his desk was a fresh file from the private investigator he'd hired. It detailed Alara's schedule and financial records for the past 6 months. The PI was good. He dug up some very interesting dirt in just a few days. "Mr. Sun, the board meeting starts in 5 minutes. His assistant Ren reminded him through the intercom. "Got it." He straightened his tie, picked up his tablet, and headed to the boardroom. Today's meeting was critical. It was time for the first real counterattack. The dozen or so board members were already seated. They stood as he entered. He noticed a few of them looked uneasy, especially Mr. Davis, who he knew was a close personal friend of Alara's. "Please have a seat," he said with a smile, taking his place at the head of the table. "We have 2 main items on the agenda today." He turned on the projector, displaying a series of charts and graphs. First, a proposal to restructure the company's talent management division. The charts clearly showed that over the last 3 years, the resources allocated to Alara alone accounted for 43% of the entire talent promotional budget. Her direct return on investment, however, was a mere 11%, far below the company's other A-list talent. "As the data shows, our resource allocation has become severely unbalanced in favor of certain individuals," he said, intentionally not using her name. "Starting next quarter, the company will implement a more equitable system for resource distribution." Mr. Davis immediately sat up straighter. "Kai, isn't this decision a bit hasty? Alara is the face of our company. Her commercial value." "Mr. Davis," he interrupted him gently. "I have a report here you might find interesting." He clicked the remote, and the screen switched to a set of photographs. In the photos, Mr. Davis and Alara were having a discreet dinner at a high-end restaurant. Sitting across from them was the CEO of their biggest competitor, Sterling Media. A murmur went through the room. "These photos were taken on the 17th of last month," he said calmly. The day before we were set to bid against Sterling Media for that government tourism contract. Coincidentally, our meticulously prepared proposal ended up on Sterling's desk the very next morning. Mr. Davis's face went white as a sheet. Kai, this is a misunderstanding. Our internal audit department will determine if it's a misunderstanding or not, he said, smiling at the other board members. Now, does anyone else feel that this particular face of the company is worth our continued investment? No one spoke up for Alara. The restructuring plan passed unanimously. While he returned to his office, Alara was waiting for him, fuming. She wore a fiery red dress and flawless makeup, but the fine lines around her eyes betrayed her exhaustion. Kai, what is the meaning of this? She slammed a stack of papers on his desk. Why have all my endorsements and appearances been canceled? He calmly sat down and poured himself a glass of red wine. A strategic adjustment for the company. Nothing more. That's bullshit. She leaned over his desk, her hands planted firmly on the polished wood. This is revenge. He swirled the wine in his glass, admiring the way it clung to the sides. Alara, you know what? The real revenge hasn't even started yet. Her pupils contracted, and she took an involuntary step back. He picked up the remote on his desk and pressed a button. The large screen on the wall lit up with security footage from his penthouse. It showed Alara and Jin frantically trying to open his safe. This was recorded last Wednesday, he said, taking a sip of wine. Interestingly, a very important file went missing from my safe that day. The company's project roadmap for the second half of the year. The blood drained from Alara's face. And guess who had that roadmap the next day? He smiled at her. That's right, Sterling Media. You have no proof, she stammered. Oh. He clicked the remote again. The screen changed to an audio file player. Jin's voice filled the room, crystal clear. Alara, the files are with the Sterling guys. They were very happy, promised to invest in my music company. Did you think the security cameras didn't have audio? Alara's legs buckled, and she collapsed into the chair opposite him. Now let's talk about the divorce, he said, pulling a newly drafted agreement from his drawer. The terms are much better for you this time. Just sign it, and I won't hand this evidence over to the police. She took the document with a trembling hand, her eyes scanning the clauses. When she got to the part about forfeiting all company shares, her head snapped up. You wish. I own half of this company. Do you? He turned his laptop around to show her the company's ownership structure. According to the official corporate registration, you don't own a single share. That's impossible, she shrieked. We had an agreement. An agreement? He sneered. Do you have that in writing? Alara stared at him, dumbfounded, as the reality of her situation finally hit her. For 10 years, her half of the company had been nothing more than a verbal promise with no legal standing whatsoever. You have 3 days to think it over, he said, pushing the agreement toward her. After that, this evidence goes to the NYPD. She glared at him, her eyes filled with pure hatred. Kai, you'll regret this. The only thing I regret, he said, pressing the button on his desk phone, is being blind enough to marry you in the first place. Run, please show Ms. Evans out. After Alara left, he checked his phone. A new message had arrived from the private investigator with several photos attached. They showed Jin at a high-stakes poker table in Las Vegas and, on a different night, with his arms around a young woman at a nightclub. A cold smile touched his lips. It seemed Jin was having a great time spending Alara's money. He dialed a number. Rebecca, it's Kai. I have a hot tip for you about a certain music producer named Jin Lee. That evening, as he was reviewing documents at home, the doorbell rang. The security monitor showed Jin standing outside his door, his face a thundercloud. He didn't open the door. He just used the intercom. What is it? Kai, he roared at the camera. You son of a bitch, you set me up. Please watch your language, Mr. Lee, he said, lounging comfortably on his sofa. What did I do? Those photos, he'd seen that the entire internet was talking about him gambling and cheating. Do you have any idea how this affects my company? He feigned surprise. Oh, you mean those? The public has a right to know. I can hardly be blamed for your colorful private life. Cut the crap, he slammed his fist against the door. Alara told me everything. You threatened her to give up her shares. I'm warning you, don't push me to the point of no return. He laughed. The fish might die, but the net won't break. By the way, that $20 million marker you have with that casino in Vegas, isn't that due next week? The other end went silent. You, how did you know that? His voice was laced with panic. I know a lot more than that, he said, his tone turning to ice. Like how you used Alera's money to support your new girlfriend, or how you forged my signature to transfer company assets. Tell me, Jian, how many years in prison do you think that adds up to? What? What do you want from me? His bravado completely crumbled. It's simple. He stood up and poured himself a glass of whiskey. Leave Alera and disappear forever. Otherwise, the next thing to go viral won't just be photos of you gambling. In your dreams, he blustered, finding a last shred of courage. Alera will never believe you. She loves me. We'll see about that, he said, ending the call and cutting off his furious shouts. The next morning, the entertainment news exploded. Renowned music producer Jian Li accumulates $20 million in Vegas debt, spotted with multiple women. The article was accompanied by a clear photo of him, drunk with his arms around two women, as he stumbled out of a nightclub. He was scrolling through the news when his phone rang. It was Alera. Kai. Her voice was a hysterical shriek. Did you do this? Do what? He asked innocently. Don't play dumb. The pictures of Jian. Oh, those, he said with a light chuckle. I just thought the world should see him for who he really is. He could hear her ragged breathing on the other end, picturing her trembling with rage. You think this will break us up? You're wrong. Jian already explained everything. Those photos were photoshopped. He almost laughed out loud. A woman in love is truly a fool. Is that so? He said, pulling up a video file on his laptop. Then I suggest you take a look at this. The video showed Jian in a hotel room with a young model. They were all over each other, and on the table next to the bed was a line of cocaine. The date stamp was from the previous week, the same days he had told Alera he was away on a business trip. He sent the video to her phone. The line went dead silent. It's fake, she finally said, her voice weak. Security footage from the Wynn in Vegas, room 1806. Need me to provide the hotel bill? He asked calmly. By the way, of the 17 business trips he's taken in the last 6 months, 15 were to Vegas to gamble. The other 2 were to Miami with his new girlfriend. The line disconnected. He put down his phone, satisfied. The seeds of doubt had been planted. Now, he just had to wait for them to grow. Around noon, his head of PR called, her voice frantic. Mr. Sun, we have a problem. Alera just posted a long story on Instagram, accusing you of domestic violence and emotional abuse. It's already the #1 trending topic. He raised an eyebrow. The cornered animal was finally lashing out. He opened Instagram and saw her post. It was a long, rambling essay, accompanied by a photo of a bruise on her wrist and a selfie of her with tears streaming down her face. She tearfully described how he controlled and abused her and even kept her from a child. The comments section was a war zone. Her fans were in an uproar, demanding justice and calling for him to be canceled. He sneered and called his legal team. Prepare a libel suit against Alera Evans. Then he called PR. Released the first wave of materials, just like we planned. 30 minutes later, several major entertainment news outlets published simultaneous exposes. A list actress Alera Evans' affair confirmed, secret love child's father revealed, and a deep dive into Alera Evans' 5-year affair with music producer Jian Li. The articles were filled with irrefutable proof. Photos of Alera and Jian on secret vacations abroad, a copy of her prenatal report from a private clinic, and even audio recordings of them plotting to transfer company assets. Public opinion flipped in an instant. The comments on Alera's Instagram post turned from sympathy to outrage. Her official fan club announced it was disbanding. The brands she endorsed began issuing statements terminating her contracts. He stood by his office window, watching the news alerts pop up on his phone, gently swirling the wine in his glass. This was just the beginning. The real show, my dear Alera, was yet to come. He stood at the window of the private club, looking out at the city lights. The whiskey in his hand glowed amber, the ice clinking softly against the glass. Mr. Sun, she's here, Rin said quietly. He glanced at his watch. 9 p.m. Alera was on time. It seemed she was truly out of options. Send her in. The door opened, and Alera walked in, her high heels clicking on the marble floor. She lacked her usual confident stride. She wore a simple black dress, sunglasses, and a face mask, as if terrified of being recognized. Since the scandal broke, she had become a national laughingstock. Sit. he said, gesturing to the sofa opposite him. She took off her sunglasses, revealing red, swollen eyes. She'd clearly been crying for days. Kai, you win, she said, her voice hoarse. I'll sign the papers. Just please call it off. He didn't answer right away. He took a slow sip of his whiskey, letting the silence hang in the air. Alera's fingers twisted in her lap, her perfect manicure now chipped and worn. You know, he finally said, the one thing I can't stand is being played for a fool. Her body tensed. 10 years of marriage. You spent my money while sleeping with another man and raising his child. He sneered. And now you think you can just walk away with a simple you win? Then what do you want? She shot back, a spark of defiance in her eyes. I'm already ruined. What more could you possibly want? He set down his glass, pulled a stack of photos from his briefcase, and tossed them on the table in front of her. They showed Jin with another young woman in a lavish hotel suite, a passionate encounter captured from multiple angles. The timestamp was from last week. Your one true love doesn't seem very loyal, he said softly. Alera snatched the photos, her fingers trembling. He could see the anger in her eyes, but it was overshadowed by fear, the fear of being completely abandoned. This doesn't mean anything, she insisted weakly. Things like this happen in the industry all the time. Really? He produced another document. What about this? It was a bank statement tracing over $20 million from Alera's personal accounts to Jin's over the past 3 years. And just last week, Jin had transferred the entire sum to an account under the name Chloe Adams. Chloe Adams? That 22-year-old music student at Juilliard? Jin's new muse, he explained with a smile. He used your money to buy his new girlfriend a condo. How touching. The color drained from Alera's face. She frantically flipped through the pages, her lips trembling. No, that's impossible. He said that money was for his music company. Oh, and one more thing, he added as if he'd just remembered. You probably haven't heard, but Jin already gave his statement to the press. He's claiming you masterminded everything, that he was just an innocent pawn you manipulated. He played an audio file on his phone. Jin's voice came through loud and clear. It was all Alera. She forced me to do it. She said if I didn't help her move Kai's assets, she'd expose our relationship and destroy my career. Alera froze, looking as if she'd been struck by lightning. The light in her eyes faded, replaced by a deep, bottomless hatred. That bastard, she seethed. I gave up everything for him, and he dares. You have 2 choices now, he said, cutting her off. 1, you continue to protect him, and you both go to prison. Or, he paused, watching as she looked up, a desperate hope in her eyes. 2, you tell me the truth. You prove that Jin was the mastermind behind all of this, he said quietly. After all, we were married once. I'd hate to see you throw your entire life away. Hope flickered in her eyes, quickly followed by suspicion. You'd help me? I'm not helping you. I'm giving our past a dignified end, he corrected her. If you cooperate and testify against him, Jin, he said, I can ensure you avoid criminal charges. She was silent for a long time. When she finally looked up, all hesitation was gone. What evidence do you need? He smiled. The prey had walked right into the trap. 2 hours later, Alera left the club with a recording pen and a micro camera he'd given her. She had promised to get a confession from Jin on tape. In exchange, he would give her enough money to start a new life. Mr. Sun, do you really think she'll turn on him? Ren asked, looking doubtful. He swirled the last of his whiskey. He doesn't need to think. He knows her. The only person Alera Evans has ever loved is herself. Sure enough, the next morning, he received a video file from Alera. In it, a drunken Jin bragged about embezzling the funds, forging his signature, and a whole list of other crimes, even boasting that he had played 2 fools for years, referring to him and Alera. At the end of the video, when Alera confronted him about Chloe, Jin flew into a rage and slapped her, knocking her to the ground. The camera feed went black after a violent shake, but her sobbing could still be heard. Perfect, he said, copying the file to a thumb drive. Send this to Rebecca at the Times. Tell her it's an exclusive. That afternoon, the video detonated online. Jin went from being the victim to a public enemy, while Alera, as the subject of his drunken assault, managed to claw back a sliver of public sympathy. He sat in his office watching the news cycle churn. Reporters were camped outside Jin's now-defunct music company, shouting questions about fraud and domestic abuse. The footage showed him desperately pushing through the crowd to escape, a pathetic shadow of the refined artist he pretended to be. His phone rang. It was Alara. I did it, she said, her voice shaking. Now it's your turn to keep your promise. Of course, he replied smoothly. The divorce papers are on their way to your apartment. Once you've signed them, his lawyer will handle the rest. The money will be wired to your account as soon as Jian is formally indicted. You promised you'd protect me, she cried, her voice rising. Now everyone knows I was involved in this. He promised you wouldn't go to jail, he corrected her calmly. As for your public image, you're a smart woman, Alara. You should have known from the beginning that cheating has consequences. There was a long silence on the other end, followed by a faint, choked sob. Kai, did you ever really love me? The question caught him off guard. The original Kai, the man whose life he now inhabited, had loved her deeply enough to forgive her anything. But he was just a spectator who had taken his place. He did once, he finally answered. But the Kai who loved you is dead. You killed him yourself. He hung up and walked to the window, taking a deep breath. The thrill of revenge was more fleeting than he'd imagined, leaving behind a strange sort of emptiness. Ren knocked and entered. Mr. Sun, the NYPD called. They'd like you to come in to assist with their investigation into Jianli. Schedule it for 3 o'clock, he said, checking his watch. And what's the situation with Alara? She was just at the bank. Looks like she was trying to withdraw a large amount of cash, Ren said, hesitating for a moment. Also, Jian was seen lurking around her apartment building. He looked unhinged. His eyes narrowed. The rats were starting to eat each other. Get our paparazzi contacts over there. Tell them to keep a close watch and send Alara an anonymous text warning her to be careful. He didn't want the game to end prematurely, not before Jian was officially charged and his victory was absolute. His meeting at the precinct went smoothly. He provided the police with a mountain of evidence, detailing Jian's embezzlement and forgery. They confirmed it was more than enough to prosecute. As he was leaving, he ran into Alara in the hallway. She looked exhausted and was being questioned by a female officer. Their eyes met for a second before she quickly looked away, as if she couldn't bear to face him. He was about to walk past when he overheard the officer ask, "So, Mr. Lee threatened to release intimate videos of you?" A pause. "Yes," Alara sobbed. "He said if I didn't give him $5 million, he'd sell them to the tabloids." Now that was a new development. The novel never mentioned Jian having that kind of leverage, not that it was his problem anymore. 2 days later, Mr. Sun, bad news. His head of PR called. Jian Li just went on Instagram Live, claiming our company is guilty of tax evasion. He says he's about to expose everything. He scoffed. A desperate, last-ditch effort. Ignore him, he said calmly. Have our complete audited tax returns from last year ready to go. The second he finishes his expose, release our official clarification. Also, contact Meta and have his account shut down for spreading misinformation. After the call, he pulled up a recording of his live stream. He was a wreck, eyes bloodshot, voice hoarse, as he screamed about how he had framed him and how he would expose all of Apex Media's dark secrets. His so-called evidence was nothing more than a few blurry screenshots of financial statements that could have been faked in minutes. It was clear the gambling and drugs had fried his brain. He was about to close the video when he noticed something in the background. On the wall behind him was a painting, a limited edition print that Alara and he had bought on their honeymoon in Paris. He was in her apartment. He immediately dialed Alara's number. No answer. He called the front desk of her building, and the concierge confirmed that Jian had forced his way in. Useless security. Should we call the police, Mr. Sun? The concierge asked nervously. Do it now. Report a home invasion. He ordered, starting his car. And send your security team up there immediately. By the time he reached Alara's building 20 minutes later, police cars and an ambulance were already parked out front, lights flashing. A crowd had gathered. He pushed his way through to the front, just as paramedics were wheeling a stretcher out. On it was Jian, his face covered in blood, his hands cuffed to the rails. A moment later, Alara emerged, escorted by 2 officers. She had a gash on her forehead and her clothes were torn, but her expression was strangely calm, almost relieved. The official police report came out soon after. Jian had threatened Alara with a knife, demanding money. During the struggle, she had defended herself by hitting him over the head with a vase. By the time officers arrived, he was incapacitated, Even better, when they searched him, they found a significant quantity of cocaine and an unlicensed handgun. He read the news alert on his phone, swirling the whiskey in his glass. Things had played out even better than he'd hoped. Jin was now facing charges for assault with a deadly weapon, illegal firearm possession, and drug trafficking, on top of his financial crimes. He was going to be in prison for a very long time. As for Alara, while she would avoid jail time, her career was over. Her reputation was in tatters. No studio would touch an actress with that much baggage. His revenge was complete, almost. His phone buzzed. It was a text from Alara. "Thank you for the anonymous warning. I might be dead if it wasn't for you." He didn't reply. He just deleted the message. That foolish woman. Did she really think he was going to let her off the hook, let her take millions of his dollars, and live happily ever after abroad? He sat in a visitor's room at the police precinct, his fingers drumming a steady rhythm on the table. It was a beautiful day, the sun casting stripes of light across the floor through the blinds. In the pocket of his suit jacket was a small thumb drive, his final gift for Alara. "Mr. Sun, thanks for waiting." Detective Chen entered, holding a file. "The information you provided was a major breakthrough. We've already verified most of it." He stood and smiled. "Of course, officer. It's every citizen's duty to assist the police." Detective Chun sat across from him, a complex expression on his face. Honestly, in all his years on the force, he's rarely seen such a meticulous chain of evidence. Financial records, call logs, even precise timestamps and locations. He's been in the business world a long time. He likes to be thorough, he said evasively, pulling the thumb drive from his pocket. "He received this last night. He thinks you'll find it useful." Chen took the drive and plugged it into his laptop. A folder with several video and audio files appeared on the screen. He clicked on the first video. It showed Alara and Jian plotting. "Once Kai dies in a car crash, I'll inherit everything after the insurance payout." Alara's voice was chillingly calm. "That mountain road has no cameras. The police will rule it an accident." Chen sucked in a sharp breath. "This is conspiracy to commit murder." "He only just saw it himself," he said with a sigh, his face a mask of carefully constructed grief. He never imagined she hated him that much. The video continued. Jian said he'd need $1 million to grease the right wheels. Alara agreed without hesitation. "Money is no object. Kai's life insurance policy is for $80 million. Chen snapped the laptop shut. "Mr. Sun, this is a game changer. I'm going to request an arrest warrant immediately." "Please do," he said, standing up and smoothing the sleeves of his suit. "Let him know if you need any further assistance." Stepping out of the precinct, he looked up at the clear blue sky. The private investigator had done his job perfectly. The evidence he just received last night had actually been in his possession for 2 weeks. He was just waiting for the perfect moment to use it. His phone vibrated. It was Ren. "Mr. Sun, Alara Evans's agent just called, asking if he would be willing to meet with her." "Tell him he's busy," he said, getting into his car. "And have HR terminate all of the company's contracts with her production studio, effective immediately." "He already took care of it, sir, based on your earlier instructions," Ren replied, a note of excitement in his voice. "You should see the news online. Her fan club just permanently disbanded, and every brand she worked with has pulled their products." He chuckled softly. Entirely predictable. He hung up and drove to Lucille, the most exclusive French restaurant in the city, located on the top floor of a skyscraper. It usually required a reservation 3 months in advance, but for a VIP client like himself, there was always a table waiting. The maitre d' led him to the best table by the window, offering a panoramic view of the entire city. He ordered the foie gras and a bottle of 1982 Lafite, and began to leisurely read the day's financial news. Just as his main course arrived, his phone rang again. It was Detective Chun. "Mr. Sun, the warrant has been issued. We're on our way to Miss Evans's residence now." "Thank you for the update, Detective," he said, cutting into the tender foie gras. The rich flavor melted on his tongue. He hopes she cooperates. He ended the call and looked out the window. Evening had fallen, and the city was a galaxy of glittering lights. In a distance, he could see the flashing blue and red lights of several police cars speeding toward the upscale residential district where Alara lived. He swirled the wine in his glass, watching the elegant trails it left behind. He had waited a very long time for this moment. After dinner, A second call came from Chun, his voice tired. Mr. Sun, we have the suspect in custody, but she's refusing to confess. She insists on seeing you. He's a very busy man, he said coldly. The evidence speaks for itself, does it not? It does, but... Chun hesitated. She said she has something important to tell you in person about the death of your parents. His fingers tightened around the stem of his glass, nearly shattering it. In the novel, Kai's parents had died in a car accident, ruled an accident, just before his wedding. He'll be there in 30 minutes, he said through clenched teeth. The interrogation room was smaller than he'd imagined. Through the one-way mirror, he saw Alara sitting at a metal table, her hands cuffed. She wore a white blouse that was now wrinkled and stained. Her once perfect hair was a mess, and her mascara had run, leaving black streaks down her cheeks. He signaled for Chin not to announce his presence and stood behind the glass, watching. I told you. I want to see Kai, she shrieked, slamming her cuffed hands on the table. You can't just keep me here. I'm a public figure. Ms. Evans, please calm down, a female officer said. Mr. Sun is a busy man. We can't guarantee he'll come. He has to come. Alara's voice dropped, and she let out a strange, twisted smile. Does he know his parents' death wasn't an accident? Does he know what really happened that night? His blood ran cold. What did she know? The officer's head snapped up. What do you mean by that, Miss Evans? Alara suddenly clambered up, her eyes darting around the room, as if she'd said too much. It was nothing. I'm just rambling. I want my lawyer. I'm not saying another word until my lawyer gets here. He pushed the door open and walked in. Alara's head shot up the moment she saw him. A look of hope, and was that triumph, flashed in her eyes. Kai. She instantly shifted into a damsel in distress persona. I knew you'd come for me. This is all a misunderstanding. Jian, that bastard, he set me up. He didn't speak. He just pulled out the chair opposite her and sat down, his eyes fixed on hers. The tears came instantly. I was wrong, Kai. You said you'd let me go? Why are you doing this? My parents' death, he said, his voice like ice cutting through her act. What did you mean by that? Her expression froze. Her eyes darted back and forth. Then she leaned forward. If I tell you the truth, will you drop the charges? He almost laughed at her shameless bargaining. You're in no position to negotiate, Alara. Either you tell him the truth, or you can take your secrets with you to prison. Her face twisted in a brief flash of anger before she forced another smile. Kai, honey, don't be like this. We were married for 10 years. 9 minutes and 30 seconds, he said, glancing at his watch. A new record for you to go from honey to Mr. Sun. Alara finally dropped the mask. Her eyes burned with venom. You think you've won, Kai? You have no idea who you're really up against. Oh, he raised an eyebrow. Do tell. She lunged forward, the handcuffs rattling. Your parents' car crash wasn't an accident. Someone paid off their mechanic to tamper with the brakes, and I know who it was. The air in the room grew thick. The female officer glanced at him, her pen flying across her notepad. Keep talking, he said, his voice dangerously calm. Alara smiled, triumphant. Let me out of here, and I'll tell you everything. He stood up and looked down at her. You know, Alara, your biggest mistake was always underestimating him. He took a file from his briefcase and dropped it on the table. These are the financial records for your father and his company for the last 10 years. It's funny, every time my parents' company faced a financial crisis, your father's personal accounts received a massive, unexplained deposit. The color drained from Alara's face. And what a coincidence, he continued. A week before my parents' car crash, your father transferred $500,000 to an account belonging to a man named Rick Johnson. And Mr. Johnson just so happened to be the head mechanic at the auto shop his parents always used. You knew all along? Alara whispered, trembling. He knows more than you could possibly imagine. Seeing you so confident, he thought maybe you had something he'd missed, he said, leaning over the table. Detective Chun, he believes this new evidence is sufficient to open an investigation into the Evans family for conspiracy to commit murder and financial crimes. Absolutely, Chun said with a grim nod. We'll coordinate with the fraud and homicide divisions immediately. He turned and walked to the door, Alara's hysterical screams echoing behind him. Kai, you can't do this to me. I love you. I really did love you. He didn't look back. He just gave a small wave, as if shooing away a fly. Outside the station, the cool night air hit his face. He took a deep breath, feeling a heavy weight finally lift from his chest. His parents' murders avenged, the betrayer facing justice. This revenge was more complete than he could have hoped. His phone buzzed. It was the private investigator. Mr. Sun, Jian Li has given a full confession, including the details of Alera's plot to have you killed. He's agreed to testify against her in exchange for a reduced sentence. He texted back, well done. The final payment is on its way. Then he made another call. Okay, proceed with the plan. When the bastard child is old enough, make sure he ends up in a system too. And for the next few years, make sure his life is memorable. Understand? He hung up the phone, looking up at the stars. He pictured Alera in a prison cell. No designer clothes, no perfect makeup, no entourage, just cold iron bars and a lifetime of regret. Though knowing her, she probably wouldn't regret what she did, only that she got caught. He hailed a taxi and gave the driver the address of the cemetery. It was time to tell his parents they could finally rest in peace. The end.